I can't control God.
It's a risk you take, you know?
I can't control the wind or God. So then
5 seconds before.
then I will call out the tour director. But I'm just saying that if the wind blows, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't control God. Talk to him.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Body Serve. I'm Jonathan.
I'm James.
It's been a cute minute since we've been on air, but we're back.
Yep, you know, someday I'll tell you the story, but it's been quite a year so far. Just lots of changes.
We'll start with where we currently are on the tennis tour, and then work our way back to the stuff that we would have missed, or would have been MIA for. Incidentally, MIA Miami is where we last.
Clever.
Yeah, I just did that. I didn't even plan it.
Wow.
We're in Monte Carlo. Novak Djokovic lost his first match. That guy lost his first match. Mm-hmm. And we are now in the semifinals where Alex de Minaur will play Musetti and Carlos Alcaraz will play Alejandro Davidovich Fokina.
A former finalist at this tournament. Carlos has a chance to snatch back the number 2 ranking from that guy if he wins the tournament.
Because he's done fuck all in the last 2 months.
Right. That's the
analysis.
Official word for it.
That's the banalysis. Oh. I'm sure somebody levied that against
Lord.
us one time. I can't listen to their banalysis.
No, are you serious?
I'm sure it was in a review somewhere.
Well, that would be clever if they had done that portmanteau, but I've never seen it.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I made it up. Maybe I did. Who knows? We'll never know.
Tabilo beat Djokovic last year in Rome, right after Watergate. That feels like 7-8 years ago to me. Can you believe that was last year?
No.
The targeted projectile attack. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The grassy knoll of tennis.
Tabilo beats Djokovic 6-3, 6-4 here, now has a 2-0 record against him. One of the very few people to have a winning record against Novak. To be fair, Monte Carlo has been his worst of the Clay Masters for a while now. The last 2 times he won Roland Garros, he had only reached the 3rd round here. And actually at his first Roland Garros title, he lost in the 2nd round here. So not, he is a 2-time winner, but poor performance at this tournament hasn't really been a harbinger for much.
Look to this head-to-head as the last obstacle for Djokovic to conquer before he retires. He has to set this head-to-head in his favor before he goes.
Djokovic said that he had been dealing with some sickness, and he still has that huge boil on the bottom of his eyelid. I promise you can take time off. It's really okay.
Davidovich Fokina is into his 3rd Masters semi-final. At this tournament, he had big wins over 2 lefties, Ben Shelton and Jack Draper, who's been winning everything lately. And that match against Draper, Alejandro said that it was, quote, shit.
Yes. But you know what? We'll take it. His 3rd semifinal in a Masters event.
Archie Fils made the quarters here. His 3rd straight Masters where he's made the quarters. Losing a tight one to Carlos Alcaraz.
Yeah, these past few months for him have been like a huge step up in consistency. I mean, everybody is talking about him online, about like this shows that he's ready to take the next step, and I don't really know what to add except, yeah, probably.
Oh, they're only talking about his game on the internet? Nothing to see there. And by saying that Fils has made 3 straight Masters 1000 quarterfinals, I mean back to back to back. The last 3.
Yes.
As in Indian Wells, Miami, and now Monte Carlo. Yes, that's what it means, but that just seems like a fabrication until you spell it out, because it's actually quite impressive.
It is, and not many men are doing that lately.
No. In Indian Wells, he lost to Medvedev in 3 sets, 9-7 in the deciding tiebreak. In Miami, he lost to Menchik in straight sets, and here he is now in Monte Carlo losing to Carlos 6-3 in the 3rd. In sad news, somebody who's been consistent himself,
Grigor Dimitrov, one of the most lopsided losses you will see in men's tennis at this level. And actually the only one at this level we've seen in, I think, 12 years, is what Tennis Channel said.
Duminar called it, quote, a bizarre match.
Double bagel, 44 minutes. Actually, the first double bagel for both players. The first Diminar has won, and the first that Dimitrov has lost. I think I read he won 15 points the entire match. One winner. What the hell?
You alluded to men's tennis being in shambles. I've seen other people say that men's tennis is in crisis. Crisis. It has been a total mess. And what was once an opportunity for that guy and Carlos Alcaraz to leapfrog Jannik Sinner at the top of the rankings, given the 3-month hiatus that Mr. Sinner's on due to the doping ban that he agreed to, that middle ground.
That he agreed to, as if it were a choice.
The agreement that was reached. There was a chance for both those men to snatch the number 1 ranking, and neither will have achieved that. Tennis Channel also is reporting that Sinner will return with the number 1 ranking.
It is official. It is no longer statistically possible that that guy can gain enough points. He would have had to win Monte Carlo, win Madrid, and I think reach the final in Munich. Something like that. It would have taken an extraordinary effort, but it did not happen. Carlos will, if he wins MC, at least regain the number 2 ranking. But Sinner is going to be out for 3 months, and the rest of the tour has shown really no signs of catching up. The rest of the top players, I mean, Medvedev, Rublev has been up and down. Tsitsipas tumbles out of the top 10 today with his loss because he was the defending champion in MC. Casper Ruud losing early in Monte Carlo. They're just not capitalizing. And Jannik has been kind about it. You know, he said, a million things can be going on in these people's lives. Like, it's not fair to say, oh, they should have snatched them the number 1 ranking while I was away. But, man, like, the top of men's tennis is kind of floundering at the moment. And I think it throws into stark relief again that we have come to expect this big 3 or big 4, a next dominant generation to take over. And the ATP is continuing to have to grapple with the fact that that's not happening.
I just had to pause the recording to go and refresh myself on what happened at the Australian Open on the men's side, because it's like I'm learning a lot of this stuff for the first time.
You knew that Sinner won, at least.
I did know that. I did not recall that guy was in the final at all.
How did... Well, you really do completely zone out when he's doing anything.
I pay him dust.
Yeah.
Until I get to talk about his losses. Part of what makes this collapse, this dire stretch of play, so stark and magnified is because he started the year in an 8-match win streak. 2 in United Cup, and then 6 at the Australian Open to make the final. And since then, he's gone 6-6.
Most recently losing in his first match in Monte Carlo to Berrettini. It was reported there were eruptions of cheers around the grounds. It wasn't really because of his loss, it was because of Berrettini's win, I would assume. He is a fan favorite, and he's Italian. Monte Carlo is super close to the Italian border. Monte Carlo is even an Italian word.
Oh, okay. Last week, Charleston happened. We had hoped to go this year, but it didn't work out. And it's a good thing we didn't plan to go, because
for several reasons it was a good decision not to go this year. I have to say I did miss it. Like, of course you all know how much we enjoyed our trip last year. We weren't really about to go with the current political and travel climate in the US.
You're still waiting for that check to arrive in the mail from Ben Navarro. You keep checking the mailbox every day.
I know. I mean, I know he has the money. But I heard from several people who said, we went there, thank you for the advice or whatever, sent a number of emails with recommendations and stuff. I'm glad that, people went because they listened to our show. about how much they liked it. And I'm glad they had a good time.
It's where you indulged in some not so light stalking of Dasha Kasatkina last year.
It's not stalking if she's just everywhere, right? I was just having my lunch, and there she is, making sushi with Jenny Brady. It's a small site. You know, you run into the same people every time.
This year, the wrong heiress won the tournament.
Speaking of Ben,
Daddy's daughter did not do the job.
the fracking heiress, Jessie Pegula, wins the title. She's now tied for the most titles and the most finals on the year. Quietly putting together a great season so far. She's been in 4 finals. This is her second title. She beats a surprise finalist, Sophia Kenin, 6-3, 7-5 in the final here.
Pegula last year, we watched quite a bit of her run to the semifinals. Do you remember her drag out slugfest with Dasha in the semifinals? Mm-hmm. 7-6 in the third, she lost to Dasha. This year she goes around better and gets the job done. She follows up her Miami final with a Charleston final and title, like Danielle did last year. If you recall, Danielle Collins won Miami and then won Charleston. Not quite the same achievement, but Jessie played in both finals.
That was meant to be Danielle's final season. I think by this time in the year we knew that this was going to be her last year on tour. She is back. She meets Jessie in the quarterfinals at Charleston as the defending champion. A kind of a strange match, right? Jessie wins the third set 6-love, and Danielle just really didn't have anything left in the tank for sets 2 and 3.
Kenin had a very good week. It seems that she is very much in her hot or cold era. At least it's not just a full-on freeze
right
anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But when she does have one of those weeks, she has a week of it. This time, she beat Pera, she beat Bencic 6-love, 6-3, Kasatkina, Kalinskaya, and then Anisimova had to retire against her.
Ostapenko has not been having a great year in singles, going 7-8 so far, but look at her year in doubles. She won the doubles title in Charleston with Aaron Rutliff. That's to go with her title in Abu Dhabi, and she was also the runner-up in the Australian Open and Dubai. You mentioned Ben Navarro. The Credit One Open in Charleston announced that in 2026, their prize money will be equal to that of the ATP 500 level. This is typically a purse of over $2 million.
Maybe I was being dense when I read this news, but I thought they were saying Navarro is going to up the Charleston women's prize pot to the same as the Charleston men's prize pot. And I was like, what Charleston men's
right.
pot is there?
Yeah.
Cami Osorio is now a 3-time winner in her home country, winning in Bogota in 2021, 2024, and again this year in 2025.
In Houston, we had the U.S. Clay Court Championships. Jensen Brooksby has been back on tour for a very short time. He was ranked number 507 going into this tournament. By winning the title, beating Tiafoe in straight sets, he jumps 335 ranking spots to 172. Because of his ranking, he had to win 7 matches. 2 of them were qualifying, 5 were in the main draw. And that included wins over Tabilo, Kovacevic, Tommy Paul, and then of course Tiafoe. And this is actually only the second time since his comeback that he's won consecutive matches anywhere.
In Marrakech, Luka Derderi beat number 1 seed Grigor for his second career title. And then in Bucharest, the tournament known as the Jan Tiriac Open. You have here written Jan Tiriac Open Barf.
This is, next year. We're obviously going to go there.
Kaboli beat Baez for the first title of his career.
Well, we're just flying through these weeks. It feels like, Miami was 2 weeks ago. Does anyone want to hear about Miami? Really?
Miami was a super spreader event.
A what? Oh.
Yeah. And we're having another Masters so close in proximity to it that is only a 1-week-long tournament. See how much easier it is to keep track of what's going on when it's just 1 week?
MC is one of the only ones left that lasts 1 week.
Well, they very well couldn't do a prolonged drawn-out thing with that small of a draw. That guy got a bye right into the round of 32.
I mean, to be fair, Miami and Indian Wells have been longer events for many years now, much earlier than the other Masters switched over. But yeah, for me, Miami was kind of a flop this year. I hate to say it, that I actually preferred Indian Wells, which literally has never happened.
Okay.
I think it's because I went to Miami and I no longer felt loyalty to it because I realized it wasn't great.
Sabalenka was your winner on the women's side, beating Pegula 7-5, 6-2. She won every match in straight sets, and that included wins against the defending champ Collins, Zhang Qinwen, as well as Jasmine Paolini. Her third final of the season, and she lost the first two, so this is her first title of the year.
Paolini is going to be coached by Mark Lopez during the clay season. Did you see that? There's a lot of coaching news, which I'll get to. But Sabalenka is now in the 10,000 points club with a lead over Iga of over 3,000 points. And Iga has a boatload of points to defend over the clay season. Pretty much as you can get.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say we're squarely in the Sabalenka era right now. This was also the tournament where we saw the breakout run of Alex Eala.
Yeah, we talked a bit about Alex on our previous episode. She's from the Philippines, a graduate of Aryna, the Rafa Nadal Academy. Iga was at her graduation. Not that long ago.
And then paid her dust at this tournament, beating her 6-2, 7-5. I watched that match before going to work one day.
The first 4 games of this match took 25 minutes. Eala's forehand down the line was causing a ton of damage, and you could see that her aggression had really amped up compared to, I guess, what we thought her game was. Like in the previous matches, it's like, oh, she doesn't have a big serve, she's a good counterpuncher, she's quick, but she really dialed up the forehand, especially in this match against Iga, and did a lot of damage. Iga, it was not great. It's one she'll want to soon forget. She only won 24% of her own second serve points. I mean, Eala's returning was on point, obviously.
I know there's a school of thought that the lefty serve is tricky. Hell, I've tried to return a lefty serve before and it was damn near impossible. I'm not a good tennis player.
If it was impossible for you.
But it's almost never coming at you more than 100 miles an hour.
Right.
There were a lot of rinky-dink serves here that she was able to hang with these top players with that serve was squarely because of her ground game and her returning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, Iga does not enjoy people taking time away from her on the return and off the ground. Like, she excels more on slower surfaces. But I still feel like this is something that Iga could have and should have figured out.
Eala cuts her ranking in half, well, nearly in half, from 140 before the tournament to number 75. Also in Miami, Emma Raducanu had a pretty good run.
She did. Yeah, she beat the other heiress, number 8 Navarro, McCartney Kessler, the Dubai champion Anisimova, and then lost in 3 to Jessie Pegula. And Emma looked pretty wiped out by the conditions there, by the humidity and the heat during that match. Surprising stat for me, this is her first time in the quarterfinals of a WTA 1000 event, and her first top 10 win on a hard court. This is a former US Open champion, mind you.
Is there something you want to say?
No, just that Layla had top 10 wins at that US Open and just couldn't get it done.
Okay. And while Emma has had a tough time with injuries and hasn't replicated anything near that, Layla hasn't really done a whole lot either.
Okay, wow. You're going there.
I'm saying with the peak in her ranking since that run to the final, she's had her troubles too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, my point is, it's not like the clearly better player, period,
I agree,
didn't win that tournament. That's all.
Sure.
They end up being fairly evenly matched, as it turns out.
Mm-hmm. The biggest headlines about Raducanu recently had been about coaching. Like the end of another coaching partnership, this time with Vladimir Platonik, that lasted 2 weeks. In Miami, she was joined by Mark Petchey and Jane O'Donoghue.
That was quite the jump scare watching that match. to see the camera cut
Okay.
to that coaching box.
Okay. Anyway, take a glance through her Wikipedia page, and I know she's been criticized to no end for this, and I'm sure more in the UK than what we're aware of. But she's had, nearly a dozen coaches and has really struggled to sustain anything with any of them. There have been a lot of short trial periods that haven't gone anywhere, and we've seen big time coaches, right? Like Sears, Dmitry Turzinov, probably better that she moved on from that. Nick Cavaday, Torben Belts. I heard a British commentator put a very positive spin on how Emma just likes to hear from a lot of different voices. I said, well, that is definitely a rose-colored glasses view on the coaching situation.
Maybe, just maybe, the rise of Megan Draper's grandson can take some of the pressure off of Emma Raducanu when it comes to the British press.
Maybe.
Maybe that will allow her to spread her wings and prepare to fly.
Looking ahead into this clay season, though, I mentioned Sabalenka has a pretty massive lead for the number one ranking. She has actually only won 2 clay titles in her career from 8 final appearances. Both of them were Madrid. Both of them were big ones, beating Ash Barty and Iga Swiatek.
If it weren't going to be Madrid, it would have been Stuttgart.
Right.
Those would be the 2 that you'd expect.
But Iga is 5-1 against Aryna in their careers on clay. Iga is obviously going into her favorite part of the calendar, but I know maybe I was a little hard on her earlier because of that match with Eala, but clearly she's going through something, right? She's even talked a little about it. She had that Instagram post about how traumatized she was by the doping suspension. She's had somebody come to her matches and harass her, similarly to Raducanu has had stalking incidents in the past. Players have to deal with things that we don't really know or understand. It's no fun to watch Iga go through this and look like she's having absolutely no fun on court. So I really hope she's able to find the solution. And the solution is hopefully firing Daria.
I think that's the first time you've said that out loud on the show.
Really?
As directly as that.
Yeah. And that's not to say that firing Tomasz wasn't a good idea. I don't like him either.
She'll enter this clay swing as the 3-time defending champion at the French Open.
Yeah. And I mean, let's be real. Still the favorite, right? Still the favorite to win the title.
Having won 4 of the last 5 French Opens. The last time she didn't win the French Open in 2021, do you remember who beat her?
Do I remember who beat her?
Yeah.
No.
There were...
I mean, I remember who won the tournament.
The quarterfinalists from that year were, in no particular order, so you don't think it's easy to guess. Just pair them up and you'll get it. The winner, which was... Who was the winner? Yeah. Paula Badosa, Iga Swiatek, Pavlyuchenkova, Maria Sakkari, Coco Gauff, and... No, 2 more. Yelena Rybakina and Tamara Zidansek.
Oh, definitely forgot that one. I don't remember. I know it wasn't Coco.
Maria Sakkari, 6-4, 6-4.
Oh, damn.
And then she had her chance in that semifinal, losing 9-7 to Babs in the third set.
Oh, I remember that very clearly. Did you read Maria's interview with Ben Rothenberg recently?
What a doozy!
I'm glad that Ben asked her about the inauguration thing. Right? They actually talked a lot about her being in a relationship with the son of Greece's prime minister, and she claims that she lost the opportunity to be the torchbearer at the Olympics.
Or flag bearer.
Wait, what are they? I don't know.
Whatever. One of them.
That it was a dream of hers, and she was selected, and then she was deselected, and she said it was because of her relationship.
I feel like it must have been flag bearer, because then the teams are introduced into the Olympic Stadium.
Right.
And one person or 2 people are
on the boats, and they're at the front of the boat. I remember.
Okay.
Yeah. He also asked her directly about being at the inauguration, and she fumbled that question badly, but I'm glad that she was asked. I mean, I don't know what you're supposed to say, right? That Yeah, I don't really care. I don't really care enough to give you an honest answer about this.
All right.
That felt like the message to me.
In men's doubles, we had a sunshine double winner. The pairing of Mate Pavic and Arevalo, the number one ranked team, beat 3 top 10 teams in their Miami title run, knocking out Glasspool and Cash in the final. It's Pavic's 41st career title and his first sunshine double to go with his career Golden Slam. So he's up there now.
Yeah, there's not much more that he can achieve in doubles.
Novak Djokovic was aiming to win his 100th ATP title in Miami. Unfortunately for him, he ran into Jakub Menšík in the final, losing in straight sets. Menšík, who then revealed himself to be a huge supporter of his king, Jake Paul.
Is it Jake? Which one is it? Logan or Jake?
Logan Paul.
I don't know who
they're
they are.
both assholes. Whichever one is the more problematic one and the higher profiled one, that's the one he loves.
Oh, I have no idea who is who. I mean, this is 0% surprising. I didn't really have an investment in Jakub Menšík either way, so it's not a huge issue for me.
He posts this thing on, I believe it was Twitter, and all the responses are, please delete this immediately. Don't do it. Don't do it. Delete now.
Yeah. What are you going to do? This is the ATP.
He's only the 5th teenager to beat Djokovic and the only one to do it in straight sets in a completed match, that being the caveat. Djokovic was quite upset and bothered and perturbed that Menšík dared to celebrate winning a point off of an unforced error by his opponent.
Well, he was mad about the net cord, but he didn't win the point on the net cord. It was like several shots before the end of the point.
So I misrepresented that.
Yes.
Not an unforced error, the net cord.
Yeah. So Djokovic was all pissy about that. We've seen him discipline before. We've seen him go into daddy mode. And Rafa has done it too. Rafa has brought people to the net to lecture them.
Danielle Collins has done it.
Right. It's not a good look. But Djokovic he likes to kind of rain on younger guys' parade when he knows he's getting beaten, you know?
Patrick McEnroe pissed you off.
He did. He tweeted that Djokovic will win his 100th title today in Miami. People are like, will? What are you talking about? The match hasn't happened yet. It was such a foregone conclusion to Patrick that Djokovic was going to beat Menšík. It gave me so much pleasure when it didn't happen.
There's been a lot of talk about Djokovic that it's the end, right? That we are in the end times. But he's still a semi-finalist at the Australian Open this year, a finalist in Miami. It's not like he's losing first round every round like that guy is doing right now.
Yeah, we're not that lucky.
Oh, wow.
No, have made myself clear that I can't wait until he retires. Like, it'll be a very good day in this household.
You now have. If you hadn't before,
let me
you
just
now
make
have.
that very clear.
We live in a very fraught geopolitical time. This era of international politics is crazy at the moment. Mm-hmm. And we have some positive news.
Yeah. Where are you going with this?
Dasha Kasatkina.
Okay. Dasha is now representing Australia. This was announced shortly before Charleston. And Charleston happened to be the first tournament where she competed under her new flag.
Canada fumbled that bag.
Well, I don't know that Dasha really looked into Canada.
I'm just saying, what was Canada's offer? Did this slip through the cracks because Trudeau was on his way out and Carney didn't quite get to it?
It didn't seem like there was a bidding process going on. Dasha clarified that she approached Tennis Australia and not the other way around. She was applying for permanent residency in Australia. They helped her find immigration experts, and they wrote a letter of support, but they didn't really recruit her, right? She was looking to go on her own. She's been approved for permanent residency and is now competing for Australia.
Of course, why this is a big issue for her. She was a Russian national. She was born in Russia.
Well, still is.
Okay. She had been critical of the Russian invasion and war in Ukraine. She also came out as a lesbian in 2022. which of course is it's not great if your home base is Russia.
No. She hasn't been back to Russia since 2022, since coming out. And Australia has actually been a destination for a number of Eastern and Central European women tennis players. Jelena Dokic, of course. Eala Tomljanovic is from Croatia. Jarmila Gajdosova, remember her? Who was briefly Jarmila Groth, married to Sam Groth. Who else? Oh, Daria Savil, of course. Daria Gavrilova, who was also Russian-born.
I bet that she had something to do with this, because they're besties.
They are close, and she often appears in the YouTube channel.
Dasha immediately becomes the top-ranked Australian woman.
By quite a lot. Ben Rothenberg did a story on this when it happened, and he pointed out that Tennis Australia has been the leader, not a leader, but the leader in LGBTQ representation in tennis worldwide. And that's not really in dispute at this point.
Remember when the PTPA sued all these tennis bodies, these tennis governing bodies, and said, we want more?
I do. That was pretty recent. That was actually our last episode.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we've now since learned that the top 20 ATP and WTA players have sent a letter to the Grand Slams demanding more money. This after Ben Rothenberg asked a handful of WTA players if they were contacted by the PTPA about the lawsuit, and they said no. 6 of them were asked.
This was reported on April 4th by L'Equipe that 20 top players from both tours. The only caveat here is that the only one in the WTA top 10 who did not sign this letter was Rybakina. Otherwise, it was the full top 10 of the ATP and 9 of the top 10 of the WTA. They love an epistle, let me tell you. They love an open letter. So they write a letter to the Grand Slam organizers calling for, number 1, a bigger piece of the revenue. They call for an in-person meeting in Madrid between player representatives and the 4 tournament directors of the slams, and they're asking for financial contributions to player welfare programs and more say in decision-making that directly impacts competition. And one example might be the scheduling, the decision on mixed doubles at the US Open. It's obviously interesting timing because it comes right after the PTPA lawsuit. It was unclear to me whether this had anything to do with it. Like, why are they coming out so closely? Are these players saying that they are not necessarily supporting the antitrust lawsuit, but they do insist that reform needs to be made? What's always reliable is that the PTPA will kind of implicitly take credit for something that they didn't do. They tweeted shortly after this that, quote, pressure is a powerful thing, and they listed a few actions that happened recently. This letter is not part of the PTPA lawsuit, right? It's not part of it. So for them to say, like, okay, this is part of our general movement is a little weird.
Remember when we were talking about the PTPA lawsuit and they had said something like it has the backing of 200 to 250 players or something to that effect? Mm-hmm. And I asked you, how far down the rankings do we go here? Who is specifically a part of this? Of course, they couldn't tell us who is in their leagues, who they're representing specifically, because they don't have a roll call. They don't have a member list. They don't have any of that. And then we come to find out that top women players have not even been contacted. Players who have specifically put their hand up and signed this letter to the Grand Slams were not contacted by the PTPA about their lawsuit.
Yes, but the PTPA claims to represent a class which includes all professional tennis players. It's weird.
I'm just saying.
Whether they like it or not.
I'm just saying.
They're part of the class action.
They are deliberately vague with what they say.
Yes, I agree. I mentioned Rybakina did not sign this letter. She's been photographed recently on court with Vukov, with Sanguinetti, surrounded by a team of only men. Vukov, of course, is her coach who was suspended from the WTA for the next year. They still have a working relationship. He's on court with her, training with her. And it's just not great, guys. You know, there are a lot of people online who are like, I can't be her fan anymore, which is fine. Like, that's your prerogative. But people who are in these sorts of relationships that are either abusive or disrespectful or whatever sort of sick power imbalance exists in this relationship, those people often get isolated further, right? And clearly part of this with Vukov has isolated her from her peers and possibly her fans.
Possibly her family.
Where is her family? Yeah, I've seen her with her sister recently, but, you know, to see this woman on court with this team of men who are older than her, with a coach who was suspended after a lengthy investigation, with a legit coach, I guess in name only, Davide Sanguinetti, who was literally brought in to be a conduit to Vukov. It's just really sick. The WTA did what they thought they could. Like, they did what was in their power legally. Clearly, that's not enough.
If they were in a relationship, if they are in a relationship, as has been alluded to by the investigation,
Yeah.
what can the WTA do jurisdiction-wise for a romantic relationship? This,
No, I mean, they can't do anything,
is
right?
illustrating the blurred lines here.
And the detractors, or I guess the libertarians, or whatever you want to call them, will say she's an adult woman who's made a decision. Like, this is her life. And yes, that's correct. But the WTA has said we don't have to tolerate this at our events. We don't have to sanction it.
This was like a closed-door practice kind of thing.
Right.
A couple weeks back, Marin Cilic won a challenger in Spain. And why this is newsworthy is because it is a record on the ATP Tour. It marks 17 years between his challenger wins, the longest such stretch between titles in ATP history. On top of that, he saved all 19 of the breakpoints against him in the semifinal and final combined. He then followed that with losing in the first round of the very next challenger, and he's currently in Spain again at another challenger in the semifinals, where he's going to be playing Royer in the semis. More coaching news.
I'm sure you've heard by now, Marat Safin is going to be joining Andrei Rublev's team as a coach. We heard earlier in the year that Safin had been kind of a mentor to Andrei when he was going through a lot of stuff emotionally, encouraged him to go to a therapist, and has really just been like a guide for him informally. Now he will be more formally his coach, at least through the French Open, according to Sofia Tartakova, who is does Andrei's PR, but she's also a journalist in Russia.
The first match together, Rublev beat Monfils in straight sets, before losing in straight sets to Archie Fils.
Marat's sister, former number one, Dinara Safina, is also going to be coaching Diana Schneider officially.
A Greek publication, the Gazeta, reported that Goran Ivanisevic will start coaching Tsitsipas, but Stefanos says, quote, "I'm not in a position to answer that yet." Of course, Stefanos went on to lose to Musetti in Monte Carlo, against whom he had a 5-0 record before this match, and of course was the 3-time champion in Monte Carlo. So Goran looks to be landing on his feet after that whole mess with Rybakina. In between those jobs, he spent a lot of time bootlicking Djokovic and heralding him for his bravery and courage during the deportation saga.
Oh, God. Again?
And the COVID stuff. Yeah.
We're doing that again.
Yeah, talking about how, now with everything that we know, think about how he was persecuted and
What do we know?
What do we know? Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I told you on the last episode that they are the establishment now. They're going to have to find a new enemy, the fandoms, right? RFK Jr., all y'all, you won. You're the establishment. So go get persecuted somewhere else.
We've been wondering what's up with Caroline Wozniacki.
Have we?
We hadn't seen her since the US Open. We saw her down under, even though she wasn't playing. She showed up at the Australian Open, and then she said that she was dealing with the arthritis and, maybe look for me toward the end of the year or later down in the year. She needs some time off.
We saw her on 34th Street
Yes.
in New York City.
We did.
Not playing.
In December. right?
rushing out of Madison Square Garden.
It was
Yes,
December.
yes.
Yeah. And she's now pregnant with baby number 3.
Good for them. Her and that guy, the Nick. David Witt.
No. David Witt was Venus's former coach.
Wait, who? David Lee.
Correct. Not the divorce lawyer on Good Wife, but the basketball
And for
player.
some reason, I always think it's J.J. Watt. But that's a different
I
sport.
think they also dated,
They dated,
at one
right?
point, I think, yeah.
But he plays football?
Correct.
Okay.
No word yet as to whether she'll be retiring from tennis or if she will continue her return to tour once baby number 3 has hatched. Mm-hmm. We're going to end the episode with a couple of questions. Shola just recently sent us a couple of questions, and the first is, he says it's a fun question. We'll let you all decide. Fun question. If you had to pick a theme song for the PTPA, what would it be?
My first thought was Curb Your Enthusiasm theme song. Just unserious. Maybe Benny Hill.
I don't really have a thought on this.
Are you saying you didn't prepare?
Partially, I did think about it, and nothing came to mind. I looked up the lyrics to Mariah's Clown, and it didn't really fit.
You know,
But that's the
it's just
general gist of it.
that songs about the free market, just they're not very good. They're not very memorable.
He also goes on to ask, maybe I need to be more patient and wait for video to be better supported, but following tennis on Blue Sky is night and day when compared to Twitter. I sometimes find myself lurking on my abandoned Twitter timeline to see the mess, the memes, and general news that I may have missed. How do you keep up with tennis news nowadays while trying to maintain a no-contact divorce with the Bird app? For all its faults, I do miss tennis Twitter community tremendously. I have to say, I do not miss the tennis Twitter community
Wow.
because we weren't able to participate in it as just fans, right? There was always you can't, don't go too far. I mean, how many times would I get a lecture from you in the morning when you woke up and saw what I tweeted?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, on the corporate account.
No,
if
you
were
censored
representing both of us.
censored on my account a couple times too.
Well,
Because I was representing
that
the
crazy.
corporate account. Well, that's the whole point. There was a limit to how messy we could be.
Mm-hmm.
So by default, it became a little bit more corporate, a little bit more buttoned up.
sure. But I think Shola is kind of saying the quiet part out loud here, and what a lot of us have been thinking, right? During tournaments, during award shows, for example, like Twitter is still going off, right? That is where you go for the up-to-date news and commentary and humor and stuff. Blue Sky has just not gotten there.
Right.
And it may, but it's not there yet.
Where I was going with what I was saying is I've been enjoying the quiet because often when we did tweet, there would always be at least one troll in the comments in bad faith. Right. That does not happen on Blue Sky. Granted, we don't skeet as much as we tweeted, but when we do skeet, it's peaceful.
Right.
And I enjoy that.
I mean, but to answer your question, I'm not really anywhere. I'm not on Twitter. Sometimes I'll go on Twitter to like read things, but most of the time the algorithm pisses me off because it's so transparent. Why are you pushing this shit to me? And then on Blue Sky, there's not much going on. A lot of our, tennis mutuals also tweet about politics, and I'm just, most of the time I don't want to read about that stuff. It's just too overwhelming and too depressing. So I'm not really anywhere. Tennis Twitter
to clarify, you want to control how you consume that stuff. You don't want to be just scrolling and then bam. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's not like you're impervious to what's going on.
No, I mean,
or that you're not curious.
I'm
still.
fairly informed, but if I'm on like our tennis themed Blue Sky and it's just constant stuff about Trump, it's like, why am I here? I'm here for tennis stuff, and where is the tennis stuff?
We are still on the Bird app because there are a couple group chats that we still are a part of that hasn't migrated elsewhere. Blue Sky hasn't gotten their shit together with that yet. I've already given warning to those people.
Right, as soon
as that feature happens.
Well, it's really annoying
Yeah.
That you can't do DMs with multiple people on Blue Sky. It's very annoying. Because I would just as soon remove Twitter from my phone, right? But I don't want to lose touch with those people. And you say you don't really miss tennis Twitter, but tennis Twitter helped us create this community of people who, I mean, now people that we count as friends in real life. You know,
We're not talking about the same thing.
Sure.
I'm talking about... I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about the mess.
Sure.
That's what I'm talking
Okay.
about.
But there is definitely something missing because now the community has dispersed, right? Not everybody has gone to Blue Sky, and you just sort of lose track of people. And you're like, oh my God, I used to talk to you all the time. So I do miss that aspect.
To the other part of the question, in terms of keeping up with what's going on in the tennis, I don't necessarily need Twitter for that at this point. Like I will get the news. I follow enough people on Blue Sky to still get the news of what's going on. Even if I don't get the full 100 as to what's going on, I know enough to then go look elsewhere to find it. Be it the app or news sites or I don't know. I'll just find it. Or oftentimes people just send us stuff.
Which is very helpful. It also depends what you used tennis Twitter for. Like if you're using it for kind of a live commentary and analysis on matches, or if you were just keeping up with some more of like the broad trends or journalism. You know, I still seek out the writers that I like. I don't need a social media app for that. That's the end of episode 377. Thank you for listening. That was a long break. It was about, well, almost.
Don't say how long it was.
They can do math. You can find us on Blue Sky at The Body Serve. I'm James. I'm at ElliotJMR on Blue Sky.
2 L's, 2 T's. I'm Jonathan. Tennis John on Blue Sky. You can find everything Body Serve related at linktree.com/thebodyserve. Thanks for listening.
Till next time.
Thank you very much.